Hi everyone. The weather has not been cooperating with me recently. It has been raining on and off, and I really wanted to do a video about the cut flower garden that we're starting, but we haven't really had time. So I thought, why not do a video on the fruit trees and the fruit shrubs that we have growing in the garden. So let's go ahead and get into it. The tree you see behind me is a cherry tree. And we don't know what kind of cherry tree it is because it's been here long before we bought the house, but whatever cherry it is, it's really, really good. So they're really large cherries, and I can't honestly tell you if it's yellow and pink just because that's what it is, or just because we try to eat the cherries before they ripen all the way. The first year we harvested, we got a pretty decent amount of cherries, considering we couldn't reach the top of the tree. We tried climbing the tree, we tried ladders, but we just can't get to the top of the tree. But the ones that we do get are absolutely delicious. So we have another cherry tree, and I can walk you back over there and we can talk about that. The tree that you'll see right here behind me is also a cherry tree. This one is clearly a wild cherry tree. The cherries are very small and a little bit on the tart side, but honestly, they're still pretty good for eating. But the birds get to most of them before we get a chance to. These cherries are probably better for like the cooking and making the wine, because it has that acidity to it. So still a very good productive cherry tree, but it's doesn't produce large, domesticated cherries like the one in the front does. Okay, so this is the Bartlett pear. It's my baby pear tree, one of three, but it's the only one that's fruiting. So this one is a fighter because it's one of a few trees that had to deal with some deer damage during the first year of planting. So deer have given my trees a run for their money, but they are pushing through. So we haven't had any pears since we've moved here, but we're hoping that these 4 or 5 pears that we have here on this tree will make it to the end of the season so we can try it out. So we'll keep you guys posted. If there's anything that I'm really truly excited about, it's the peaches this year. And that's because this is our first major peach fruiting. I'm not going to say harvest because I don't want to jinx myself. We are getting too excited, and I can already see that some of the bugs are eating the peaches. So already learning a new lesson, which is pest control, but even still, it's just so beautiful to look at. So I can't really tell you how these peaches taste. This here is the Redhaven Peach that we planted in 2020, and we're hoping that it tastes delicious. We typically buy peaches from the farm stand and can those peaches and make peach jelly and store that in the pantry, but we're going to see if we have enough to do this on our own from our own homegrown Redhaven peaches. So I'm truly excited about this tree here because it reminds me of growing up in the South. This is a mulberry tree, and we have mulberries kind of just popping up. This will be our first year actually getting fruit from one of our mulberries. This is a white mulberry. I've never tried a white mulberry before. I've had red mulberries. So we'll let you know how they turn out, but here they are. I just want to mention that I'm only showing the trees that we have that are actually producing flowers and fruit this year, hopefully fruit this year. But we do have pears that haven't gone to fruit yet. We do have some blueberries, some figs, and a couple of other things that have not gone to fruit just yet. So I'm not going to show those in this video because we're not eating from them yet. The little cluster of trees that you see back behind me are the wild persimmon trees. And shockingly, they taste similar to, well, when you make milkshakes, they taste similar to a creamsicle milkshake. So we're kind of obsessed. But the tricky thing about the persimmons, at least the wild persimmons, is you have to wait for them to get really soft. So typically after a cold frost, you will get like these nice soft persimmons, and they fall from the tree. Falling from the tree is great for harvesting, except the fact that you are kind of battling with wild animals. So you're battling with the deer and whatever else that may try to come and eat your persimmons. So you have to be quick about it. What we do every year is we lay a tarp down right around the time where we know that the fruits are going to drop. We lay our tarp down and we come out every day to pick out the persimmons that have survived from whatever animals that may want to come pick them up. So if you're going to harvest these wild persimmons, I would highly suggest you getting a food mill to mill out the seeds or to strain out the flesh from the seeds, because the wild persimmon seeds are very large and it's hard to eat them fresh. Another thing about persimmons, there are two different kinds, the firm kind, astringent and non-astringent. So I think the firm kind is non-astringent. These are astringent. So what that means is if you try to eat them while they're hard and they haven't softened up, your mouth will get that cotton dry feeling and it takes a long time for it to go away. I don't know this from experience, but Tim knows from experience because he complained about it for weeks. So don't be greedy and wait for these things to soften up before you eat them. The other ones I think you can eat more like an apple. I want to get a few of those, but we don't have them yet, so heed my warning. Here's an example of Icona. Here's an example of one of the pawpaw trees that I mentioned in my last video. Like I mentioned, we have lots of these trees growing in the forested part of the backyard, and it has the flavor of like a mango, but the texture of a banana. It's really hard to describe, so I'm not even going to go any further than that. That way your expectations are set appropriately. I would say make sure you try it out in small quantities before eating a lot of it, just in case it upsets your stomach in any way. But give it a try. You can make bread with it, you can make smoothies with it, and I'm sure people have made tons of other things with it, but that's as far as we've gone so far. These are another thing that kind of drops from the plant, just like the persimmons, or if you're lucky enough to grab it right before it hits the ground, like right when it's soft enough to drop from the plant. You pick them up and they have a very strong smell to them. So just look in your yard. If you have trees in your backyard that's kind of wild and forested and native, give it a look and see if you have them back there. And we've made it to the blackberry patch. If you haven't checked out my very first YouTube video all about my experience growing blackberries, please check it out. I'll link it in the description below, and I'll also place a link above here. So blackberries have become a staple fruit for us in late spring throughout the summertime. It really helps kick off with the cherries and the strawberries our summer of limited grocery store costs when it comes to fruits and vegetables. So we use it for blackberry cobbler, we use it for frozen blackberries or blackberry preserves for canning, any way that we can think of, but we really do depend on these blackberries because they've spread so fast and they've grown so fast that, I mean, they've just become a part of our yearly excitement. So watch my last video to see more about my blackberries. Most of the flowers that you see behind me are wild blackberries, and there are some multiflora rose in there too, but in general it's mostly blackberries. And these are the wild ones, so they're small and they're tart and they're slightly bitter, but they're still great for cobblers and freezing for jams and preserves. So the only caveat about these is in the summertime it can get very hot and it's quite a hassle to try to harvest these really thorny plants that are producing very small berries, when you can plant the domesticated versions, thornless versions that produce larger, more delicious berries. So but we're still grateful that we have them. While I'm walking over to my next wild fruit, I'll just mention that we have a lot of wild grapevines around. We tried some of the wild grapes last time. They were disgusting in my opinion. But maybe we can try making wine one year if we can harvest enough. We do have the muscadine grapes and riverbank grapes. I don't know. They were nasty, but we have them. The little patch you see behind me is our raspberry patch. I think most of them are heritage variety, the heritage red but to be honest, I can't remember. I'm not really good about plant tags, but I think these are the Heritage Red, and they're very productive, very, very good. And if you haven't had a homegrown raspberry before, I highly suggest you find a local farmer or a farm stand somewhere to try them out, because they taste so much better than what you would buy in the grocery store. So right after the blackberries start setting fruit and ripening, I should start getting these as well. In the blackberry video, I mentioned how I would dig up the canes and spread them around just so I can have more blackberry plants. And I've done that also with the black raspberries that we have growing around the property line. So wild black raspberries that are very good, except for when it pours raining, because once it starts pouring raining, when those berries are ripe, they start to taste very watery. And it's funny because our first year we were like, oh my god, these black raspberries are so delicious. So we were hyped about our family coming to try these black raspberries, and of course it rained, and when they tried the black raspberries, they were watery. So but I planted them in front of the cherry tree. I dug up some canes and spread them in front of the cherry tree in the front of the house, and they're actually flowering. So we'll actually get some blackberry fruits or black raspberry fruits from the front of the house this year, not only just the back. All right, we're now sitting in what's probably going to be the most favoritist part of the garden over the next couple of months, and that's the strawberry patch. And I've already done a video on my strawberry experience, so check it out. But I can say to you now that I haven't gotten any better at snipping off runners, despite what I may say. I still have an enormous amount of strawberry plants, but I'm not complaining whatsoever. So we are full force in strawberry season, so we're very excited about that. I also have 7 little blueberry bushes, and they're so very tiny. They were planted all last year. I planted some the first year around, but if you watch my last video talking about the whole watering situation, the apple trees were not the only thing I lost from not watering across the field, but a few of my blueberries and gooseberries and other things from my food forest also died. So that's something I didn't disclose there. But we did recover and planted 7 more blueberry bushes, and a few of them have gone to fruit. So I'll show you guys that in just a second. They're so tiny I can't even fit them in this shot with me, but we're still grateful for the little bit of berries that we'll get this year. If the birds don't eat them, chances are Ezra will eat them, and if Ezra doesn't eat them, chances are the dogs will eat them. So the chances that I will taste these blueberries, very, very low. Thanks for walking with me and learning more about my fruit trees and shrubs. Please feel free to leave a comment below, like, share, and subscribe. I will appreciate the feedback, and I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Bye. Always take a dog with you so the coyotes don't get you.